This is the voice of the Report of the Week, signing on. Well, hello, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone listening in to tonight's program of the VORW International Podcast. Hope everyone out there listening in is feeling and doing all right. It's so funny how it is. I got all comfortable, got all set up, got everything just right, and just as I pressed record, I realized I forgot my main water. However, I see a water bottle over here. I'm going to try to reach over for it real quick. Let's see if I can. And I might knock stuff over in the process, but let's see. Okay. Well, it's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Normally not what I would drink, but... Alright, I'm gonna take a sip. I'm a little parched. Like I said, not perfect, but good enough. Not a brand I would normally go with. As far as bottled water goes, I usually go with Fiji, or I go with Evian. And this is neither of those, but sometimes you have to settle. Anyway, it's been a while since I did a program, and first and foremost I want to draw your attention. There are two pieces of fan art that are featured in the program today. There's more fan art than this, but I'm only going to feature these two pieces, as I'm going to get to that next. Anyway, first piece of fan art, for those of you who are watching the video, goes out to Cathy Amerling. Her YouTube channel is Cathy Drums, so you could find more there. And again, that's for the first piece of fan art. And the second piece of fan art, credit to Jayme. I do want to mention that if you are feeling artistically inclined, I'm always a big proponent and big supporter of exercising one's creativity. So if you do want to make a piece of fan art, go for it, have fun with it. Personally, and people will see it how they see it, I'm not a big fan of the AI art. I like more or less authentic art. So that's what I intend to prioritize. I don't know, I like the real deal, where someone actually... That's what it's all about, I feel, anyway, instead of just adding a prompt to a third-party program. But anyway, I prefer the authentic art, but if you are feeling artistically inclined and you'd like to submit a piece of fan art, have fun with it, that's what it's all about. And then just send it to me via email to vorwinfo@gmail.com. Please let me know how you'd like to be credited. That could be by name. You could link a social media profile, a website, or if you would like to remain anonymous, I'll keep you anonymous. If you don't let me know how you'd like to be credited, you will be kept anonymous by default. I do want to introduce the sponsors of this program. These are good folks, good businesses, good services. They help keep this program going. They help keep the radio show going. And I want to give credit to them. Credit where credit is due. So please lend an ear to a few of the sponsors for today's program. Again, I know people feel how they feel about ads, but these folks, they keep it all going. And I gotta give them a pat on the back for it. So please lend an ear, and I'll catch you all in a minute or two. Today's episode is brought to you by Bluegill Enterprises, LLC, where creative design meets craftsmanship. Whether you're envisioning a serene patio oasis, a sturdy privacy fence, or a bespoke structure that stands out, Bluegill Enterprises is your go-to. Born in the Midwest but crafted in Oregon, Bluegill was founded to bring creative design to backyards, homes, and farmsteads. They specialize in one-of-a-kind designs tailored to your needs. From custom carpentry to intricate construction, and even rock and earth work, they do it all. Bluegill proudly serves Oregon's Willamette Valley. Contact Bluegill Enterprises today at bluegill.ent@gmail.com. That's BLUEGILL.ENT@gmail.com, or visit their website at bluegillenterprises.com, BLUEGILLENTERPRISES.com. VORW listeners will receive a 10% discount. Just mention the show. Let their expertise and creativity make your dream outdoor space a reality. Check out Drew Buxton's exciting new book, So Much Heart, out now from With an X Books. It's a literary short story collection with speculative horror elements that has received praise from Nylon, Southwest Review, Chicago Review of Books, and the Southern Review of Books, among other outlets. Nylon named it a must-read, writing, Drew Buxton's debut short story collection exposes the wiry underbelly of things, schemes, addiction, intrusive thoughts, masculinity, American mythology, with a beating heart interested most in affirming the strangeness of his life. Southwest Review says of So Much Heart, what makes these stories truly special, what turbocharges them, is their departure from realism into bent and refracted versions of past, contemporary, and future Americas. The book is available for purchase at withanxbooks.com/store. That's withanxbooks.com/store. withanxbooks.com/store. Or for more information, visit drewbuxton.com. That's DREWBUXTON.com. drewbuxton.com. This broadcast is brought to you by Wayland Media, your Swiss Army knife creative studio. Are you ready to launch your own business, book, or album, but you're still on the search for branding that feels like you and your work? Look no further. Based in Seattle, Washington, having worked with hundreds of individuals and businesses nationwide, Wayland Media is the creative powerhouse of Christopher Miller, a multidisciplinary director, designer, and photographer. His studio has a passion for allowing others to tell their story through all visual mediums, including logos, cover artwork, motion graphics, merch design, web design, action, and lifestyle photography. In its 12 years of experience, Wayland Media has worked with musicians and authors to global telehealth companies in order to bring their brand vision to life. With a concentration on storytelling in the design space, Wayland Media breathes new air into the stark and stale landscape of today, ready and willing to collaborate with you. Take your project to the next level of professionalism with a free quote, and, as an extra incentive, listeners of VORW will receive a 20% discount. Just send an inquiry to chris@waylandmedia.co, chris@waylandmedia.co, chris@waylandmedia.co. Receive a free project quote with a 20% discount. Wayland Media, your friendly neighborhood creative. And now, back to the program. Alright, and if you do want to advertise on this program, you could always shoot me an email, VORWINFO@gmail.com. I could do an ad read for you, just like you heard with some of the sponsors just now. And if you want some information at the very least, I'll be happy to oblige. Again, just ask, and you shall receive. If you also want to support the program and support the radio show, because I have to pay for every hour of airtime that I do there, and it adds up, it sure does, you could send a donation via PayPal to VORWINFO@gmail.com, or support the program at Patreon, patreon.com/The Report of the Week. If you support it on the Patreon, as a little bit of gratitude for your support, you can access all my radio shows on demand, thousands of hours of additional content on demand, crystal clear audio that you could listen to anytime, any place, anywhere, to your heart's content. It's the least I can do, a little way of giving back. So with everything, all that business aside now, I wanted to do a little bit of explaining, and I hope what I'm asking of all of you is this, and I know the request in and of itself might be rather simple, but the nature of everything might be more than that, and, the ball is in your court, essentially, and it's up to you. I'll just share my side of things, and how you wish to perceive and handle it is, again, it's up to you. All I ask, anyway, is of your understanding, and nothing more, and that's literally it. It's been a while since I did a program. I certainly know that. It's been longer than I wanted to. I think the last show that I did was maybe in July or August, and now here we are in mid-October. And I know a lot of people have been wondering, and I think to some this is just going to sound like another excuse, and if you want to interpret it as that, I can't stop you. I'm not even going to try to stop you. If you want to think of it as an excuse, I don't care. Go ahead. But I'll just share things from my point of view, and then we'll get on with the show. I was intending to do a program in late August, early September. At the time, though, my health was just starting to, get a lot of get iffy. They've just been getting a lot of bad days lately. And then in mid-September, something personal involving family happened that I'm not going to elaborate on, but it sort of led to a spiral of events which caused the succeeding month to probably be one of the worst, if not the worst month of my entire life. And for that time, my whole world was turned upside down, so much so that this show wasn't even in my mind. It was not even I wasn't even thinking about it. I was trying to do what I could to have any sort of sense of normalcy going on, but that's pretty difficult, and I think those of you who have been in a really rough spot understand that, when you've got something that happened unexpectedly that just upended your entire world. You know how it is. It's like you still have to go to work, you still got to do your job, but you might not really be thinking about it as much as you normally would. And that's how it sort of has been for me. It was just something very, very serious. And like I said, totally unanticipated, totally unexpected. And it was just the last thing I saw coming. So that entire month has just been, like I said, it was really, really rough. It was a very difficult time. And things now are finally starting to look better. They're finally starting to look up. And now I'm finally able to get to the microphone again. But I know it's been a while, and that's just the reason why it's been so long. Like I said, if you want to look at that as an excuse, I don't care. Then it's an excuse. I would hope, though, you're a little more understanding. That's why I said I just ask for your understanding. But things, thankfully, are getting a bit better now. And I just hope that they stay that way now, because, like I said, this last month was, I don't ever want to go through it again. That's all that I'll say. For as long as I live, I never want to, if I could anyway, life is what it is, and I realize that I can only do so much. But if it ever were possible, it would be something that I would hope anyway, and wish I would never have to go through ever again for as long as I live. Once is more than enough. So, I'm hopeful anyway that I'm finally exiting, the metaphorical storm. And, I'm hoping that's the case. To continue the storm analogy, I hope I'm not in the eye of it, and I'm just getting a brief respite. I hope this is now going to be long-lasting. But anyway, because I've been gone from the microphone for so long, and so much has happened in the meantime, I've made the decision that I'm going to be doing a couple shows in a short period of time. And this program, I want to talk about, for the most part, my experience with Hurricane Milton. And I also want to talk about an issue that's been impacting the distribution of this program. And then, a couple days from now, I'm going to be back at the microphone, and I'm going to do a second show where I'll respond to a few listener emails. I'm going to talk about some random things. I'm going to give a little bit of a lecture about maybe some of the anticipated events, the unpredictability, I should say, of life, and a few thoughts on that. And that'll be for another show. So this show, I just want to talk about Hurricane Milton, and again, an issue dealing with the distribution of this program, and then we'll get into, then the next show, again, we'll follow this one up in a couple of days. So, hope you understand there. Alright, first things first, since this is the shorter of the two things I want to talk about today, I got email after email in the last week about an issue with the podcast on Spotify. Now, you have to understand, the way the show is distributed and syndicated, it goes out on many platforms. It goes out on YouTube, it goes out on SoundCloud, it goes out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, goes out on TuneIn Radio, Amazon Music. I mean, whatever, any podcast platform that exists, the show goes out on it, essentially. I like to have a lot of options, because I know a lot of people out there have their platforms of choice. So anyway, about 5 days ago or so, I was getting email after email in my inbox. Listeners started writing in there saying, "Hey, what's going on with the Spotify?" I had no clue. I thought, what do you mean, what's going on with the Spotify? They didn't know what they were talking about. But one email after the next, they're saying, "Yeah, I'm at the Spotify, it's not showing up." That's weird. Spotify podcast disappeared. That's one email. Then a couple minutes later, this listener says, "Did it get taken down on Spotify?" Another one comes in, says, "It's not available on Spotify." So I check. Sure enough, it says the podcast is not available. Now that's weird, right? Why isn't my podcast available on Spotify? So, I think to myself, well, it's all connected. And even though I'm pretty hands-off when it comes down to the distribution of things, I'm going to log in and see what's going on. Maybe they did some sort of update that messed with the settings or something, I don't know. I log in, and this red error message pops up that says, "You do not have permission to access this page." That's weird. I think, alright, let me check everywhere else. No, it's still there on SoundCloud, still there on Apple, still there on Amazon and TuneIn and YouTube and everywhere else, just Spotify. So, I reach out to the Spotify customer service, and needless to say, my experience with them, now granted, They're a big site. A lot of people use them, so I'm sure they're awfully busy, but my experience with their customer service was less than stellar. I go in. First, I get the nice little AI bot that tells me, "Oh, there's nothing we could do for you." So, then I just have to say, "Look, I just want to speak to an actual human being." Half hour later, I get put in contact with someone. I tell them the whole story about how, look, I'm not all that versed with all of this, with the ins and outs, but I don't understand why this isn't showing up here. And after I spend a good 15 minutes explaining everything, the guy tells me, "Well, my shift's over, so that's about it." And I get no answers, and the guy just leaves. And thankfully, I asked for a record of the conversation, the ID, and I thought, I'm just going to go in one more time and try to speak to someone else. And I got another operator, gave them the ID to the last conversation, so I didn't have to repeat myself. They look and they said, "Yeah, it's been removed." And I said, "Yeah, well, why? Why has it been removed? I didn't get an email telling me that it's been removed, so what's going on here?" I thought if it was in violation of rules, I would be reached out to in advance and would have been told, "Your podcast has been removed from Spotify," and I would have at least known why. I said, "No, it just is. It's removed. Sorry." And that was it. They said, "Yeah, we can't do anything else for you. It's gone. And be a little more careful next time." Thought to myself, this doesn't make any sense, I didn't get any notification about this being removed from Spotify. And yet here I am being told that it's removed, but they're not telling me why it was removed. Just be more careful next time. It's like, what is this? Does someone there at Spotify have a vendetta against me? Was it some sort of glitch? Did something just happen and they didn't actually know, so they just decided to BS me? Because this makes no sense whatsoever. So, I can't say I'm all that surprised. Thought to myself, I figured as much, The way a lot of big tech is, you have to understand, and this isn't conspiratorial or anything, this is just the truth. If a site, or someone at a site, regardless of how big or small it is, simply doesn't like you, they don't need a reason to get rid of you. They might have rules and guidelines and all that good stuff, but the fact of the matter is, if they don't like you and they don't want you there, they could just get rid of you. And they don't even need to come up with a reason why. They could make something up if they just plain don't like you and want you gone. So, I was despondent, and I started responding to any email and inquiry about it, saying, "Look, I don't understand it, but it looks like the show's gone from Spotify. I haven't really gotten any answers, just the fact that they took it down." I was telling people, "Look, just go listen elsewhere, because I don't think it's coming back." And this went on for about 5 days straight, and so at that point I thought, no, this probably isn't a glitch or anything, but it's gotta be gone. Well, sure enough, about a day ago, suddenly, the podcast returns to Spotify. I was never notified of this. I was never updated. Nothing. I've been in the dark about this pretty much just as much as all of you have been, aside from these conversations with the customer service. Podcast comes back. Suddenly I can log back in with no error messages. It's like nothing ever happened. Can access the statistics. Can access all the episodes are there. And it's like none of this ever happened again. So I don't know what this was about. I don't know if there was an employee there that maybe went rogue and just didn't like me for one reason or another, and decided, F this guy, I'm gonna remove his podcast, and just went ahead and did it, and then maybe administratively it was corrected. I don't know if there was actually a glitch in the system, and, maybe not all the staff there were on the same page, and they didn't really have answers, so they just thought it would be most likely that it was removed, so they just sort of BS'd me to try to get me to be quiet and go away, and said, yeah, it's just been removed. I really don't know what happened here. Like I said, I don't know if this was a glitch. I don't know if someone got a little overzealous and just decided to take it. I really don't understand what happened or why. But all I know is that as of now, as of the 15th of October, the podcast is back up on Spotify. Now, I can't guarantee that it's there to stay, because like I said, it disappeared for almost a week, with no warning or anything, and if it happened once, I mean, why couldn't it happen again? So, if you're a Spotify listener, the good news is that it's back, but I ask of your caution, because I can't confirm that it's going to be there to stay. And I just hope, I've preached to this before, and I'm going to do it again, that this is still once again a wake-up call as far as big tech is concerned, how easy it is to get rid of everything you've done. It could be done with the flip of a finger right there. Like I said, if they plain just don't like you and want you gone, hypothetically, it could be that easy, and they don't need a reason. So don't think that, oh, they couldn't do that because it wouldn't make any sense if they did, and I'm not doing anything wrong. No, that doesn't matter. You could be doing everything right, and they could still get rid of you. So I hope that's a wake-up call to some people out there, because, like I said, people were telling me, yeah, but why would it be gone? It's not a controversial show. I said, I know. But it's still gone, so you could try to do everything between the lines, and sometimes it doesn't mean a thing. And just be wary of that. That's again one reason why I like the shortwave so much, because I could say anything I want, I could play anything I want. Technically speaking, it doesn't matter how vulgar it is or how controversial it is, not that this show is either of those things, but hypothetically speaking, it would just go out completely unobstructed, uncensored, and the decision would solely lie with you, the listener, as to whether or not you want to give the program the light of day or not, as opposed to some big tech algorithm or some big tech employee that just has a grudge and has more power and control than they ever deserve. That's why I like the shortwave so much, because it's putting the freedom back in your hands, which is such a rare thing these days, when all it is nowadays is just big tech and algorithms, this, that, and the other thing, that are practically telling you what to watch, do, and think. And it's kind of old school, and I think it leads to some critical thinking, and I just like it. And that's another reason why, of course, I'll continue to advocate for and be a proponent of radio. So anyway, it's back on the Spotify, and hopefully there it will stay. Before we get into the next segment, I just want to air a message from two more sponsors, so please stay tuned, dear listeners. Finally, an original new story, an instant classic for all ages. Introducing The Spirits of Shylork, a strange book for strange times. It will have you laughing 1 minute and crying the next. At once a fantasy and mystery, a love story and a tragedy. The Spirits of Shylork will stay with you for the rest of your life. With a flash of light seen across the world, the rulers of Earth disappear, and a heavenly land, Shylork, emerges amongst the ruins, beckoning the world's stray inhabitants to its shores, brimming with life and peace at last. But soon, the deranged Count Kazoo, the most evil duck there ever was, turns their heaven into hell, engulfing the land in fire and a sterilizing potion, starving its citizens. It takes the great Aryan Lumenbeak, a mystical rooster bestowed with a divine gift and a secret seed, to save Shylork again. With it, he grows the otherworldly dibble-dabble vine, whose fruit nurtures the animals back to health. Crowned king, Lumenbeak promises Shylorkians his continued protection and peace forevermore. But one day an unknown enemy of only their worst nightmare brings fire and starvation to Shylork again. Amidst chaos and betrayal, Shylork is plunged back into darkness and under new, diabolical leadership. The dream of Shylork seems destined to die forever, until two friends, refusing to give up hope, hatch a dangerous plan. The Spirits of Shylork is an epic story of the power of love and hatred, good and evil, faith and despair, and the mysterious forces that intertwine and inspire all life on Earth. Take a break from the news and social media and enter a new world. Shylock, free on Kindle Unlimited or only $2.99 on Amazon Kindle. Also available in paperback. You won't be able to put it down. Check it out. The Spirits of Shylork. And that's spelt Shylork. Do you need some original music for an advert or a jingle for your podcast? Perhaps you're developing an app that needs a catchy tune, or a game that needs a standout soundtrack. Michael Monaghan is an experienced and versatile British drummer, musician, and composer based in Berlin, Germany, and he's here to help you. Are you a wrestler in need of a new theme tune? Does the highlights reel from Grandma's funeral need a somber soundtrack? Or perhaps you simply need an experienced drummer and percussionist to play a part on your new song. Michael has got you covered. From top-rated TV series and blockbuster films to elite fashion ads, Michael's music can be heard in a variety of high-profile productions, including the Netflix hit Heist and Harrison Ford's recent film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Does an elevator near you need an uplifting ditty? Maybe your hotline needs holding music. Why not commission a custom composition to accompany the uncorking of that vintage wine you've been saving? This isn't machine-made music computed by algorithms. These are good old-fashioned, man-made, human-played beats and musical beds. So if you're ready to elevate your project with unique bespoke music, then drop Michael a line today. You can contact him at michaelmonaghan@gmail.com. That's michaelmonaghan@gmail.com. michaelmonaghan@gmail.com. Everyone needs high-quality original music, but not everyone knows it yet. Alright, and lastly what I wanted to talk about, and I was thinking about how I want to do this, because, for my Shortwave broadcast, I recorded this segment where I talked about Hurricane Milton, and honestly, I feel like that segment, at least, is so good that I just want to include that in this podcast, because I don't think I could have said it better. I gave that segment while it was still really fresh in my mind, but as some context, for those of you that don't know, I'm in Florida, and with everything else that was going on, I started getting these reports that there's a tropical system brewing in the Gulf of Mexico. And sure enough, because for those of you that don't know, I have an interest in tropical weather, but for those of you that don't know, I have an interest in tropical weather. I monitor the models for the fun of it in the first place, but I started looking and I started seeing this storm, Hurricane Milton, and I was thinking, this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good at all. And sure enough, it looked like it was going to be a very powerful system, a very strong system, and it looked like it was headed straight for me. And the simple fact of the matter is that all three of those statements proved correct, and I ended up getting a full impact from Hurricane Milton. And in one of my most recent shortwave broadcasts, I gave a talk for about 30 minutes about my experience with Hurricane Milton, and like I said, I recorded this pretty much just after it hit, so everything was fresh in my mind, and I want to air that for all of you right now because I don't think I could have said it any better than I did in that moment. And if there's one simple correction, in one segment of the show, I said that I woke up on Thursday. I think I said I woke up Thursday afternoon. I meant to say I woke up Wednesday afternoon because the storm made landfall Wednesday night and Thursday morning. And I was meaning to say Wednesday afternoon, and I just misspoke. I know that's a minor detail, but if you hear that, that's what I meant to say. So please stay tuned now. The next segment aired initially on my radio show on 4840 kilohertz. So for those of you that sort of wonder what I talk about on the shortwave, this is a good example of it. And this went over the air initially. And like I said, though, I couldn't have said it any better than I did then. So I want to sort of air that segment here for all of you. But this is my experience with Hurricane Milton. And I hope it makes for an interesting listen. Stay tuned. This is VORW International. But the big story from my neck of the woods, anyway, has been Hurricane Milton. I know a lot of you guys sent in emails with your well wishes, sending in some good luck, some good thoughts, some prayers, and after the fact, a lot of folks checking in, wondering how things have been on my end. So, I'm in the Orlando area, and I will specify this. Having been through a number of hurricanes, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been through a ton. I would say I've been through more hurricanes than probably many folks in this country, with the exception of lifelong Florida residents and lifelong residents of the Gulf Coast. But I mean, I've been through a number of storms. When I was quite young, I dealt with Hurricane Floyd. Then there was a big break up until I dealt with Hurricane Irene in 2011. That was when I lived up in New York. I dealt with Hurricane Sandy in 2012. In 2017, I dealt with Hurricane Irma. Hurricane Dorian, it just sort of skirted by. It wasn't really a big deal in my area. It was just some rain. There was Hurricane Ian in 2022, Hurricane Nicole in 2022, Hurricane Idalia in 2023, the outer bands of Hurricane Helene just a few weeks ago, and then Hurricane Milton just a few days ago. And I think one may ask, of all of those hurricanes, which again, there are folks out there who have experienced many more, but of all those storms, right, what would you consider to be the worst one you were ever in? What had the strongest impacts? Which one was maybe the most violent and unnerving? And my answer to that, without hesitation, because nothing even comes close, is Hurricane Milton. Easily, without a doubt, the strongest hurricane I have ever found myself in. It made... Now, for the most part, in my case, I got a foot of rain, which is... that is a huge amount of precipitation. But the wind was really what did it. When Hurricane Ian hit my area, that's probably the second worst, the rain was the big event, and there was some powerful wind, but it was really the rain. In this case, there was a lot of rain, but the wind was unlike the wind of any other hurricane I had been through. And the reason being is because Hurricane Milton, was a storm for the record books. It was one of the strongest storms ever in the history of the Atlantic hurricane season, at least in recent history, storms which have been observed, getting a maximum strength of winds of 180 miles per hour and a low pressure of 897 millibars, which, for those of you who are weather enthusiasts or meteorologists, you know that if a storm goes sub 900, forget it. That's for the record books right there alone. And the storm, became this insanely strong Category 5 hurricane. It began weakening as it approached southwest and west Florida, and the wind shear was doing a number on it, but it just didn't weaken quick enough. and it made landfall in the Tampa area, just to the south near Sarasota, as a major hurricane on Wednesday night, and it then progressed northeast across Florida at hurricane strength the entire way across the Florida peninsula. Because a lot of storms, as soon as they make landfall, they fall apart quite quickly, and oftentimes, once they make it to the middle of the state, they're usually just a tropical storm. But Hurricane Milton, it was just built different, and this system maintained hurricane strength as it crossed the state of Florida. And by the time it reached me, it was a Category 2 hurricane. So you might look at that, you may think, you're a Category 2 hurricane? But then the caveat is that the sustained wind speed at the time when it was closest to me was still over 100 miles per hour. So a Category 2 sounds like one thing, but now imagine sustained winds of 100 miles per hour. Yeah, that sounds a whole lot worse than just Category 2, doesn't it? And wouldn't you know, with my luck being what it is, it went directly over me. I was in the center of the storm. The eye went right over me. And it was an experience, all right. I woke up, tried to get some sleep, which was not easy, but I woke up Thursday afternoon to these tornado warnings coming in, and my jaw dropped because, granted, hurricanes can form tornadoes, but these were unlike what you normally see from hurricanes. Most tornadoes spawned by hurricanes are these weak, wispy little things, maybe have 70-mile-per-hour winds. Not something you want to be in, but not the worst either. These looked like tornadoes you would see out in Oklahoma. I mean, we're talking storms that are these big wedge tornadoes that are probably going to be rated EF3 to EF4 on the enhanced Fujita scale. These were the real deal. I mean, these tornadoes do not happen in Florida. In this state, we simply just don't. EF3 tornadoes happen in the Florida peninsula maybe once every couple decades. And EF4 tornadoes, never. And there were 130 tornado warnings as the outer bands came in. Almost every single supercell had rotation, and numerous supercells were producing these EF3, EF4 wedge tornadoes. These are the types that, if you are in it and you aren't protected, you will be killed by it. I mean, these tornadoes, these are the ones that you see on the Weather Channel and the people doing the storm chasing out west. Not here in Florida, but there they were. And I wake up to the fact that there's 2 of those tornadoes in the county right to the south of me, moving northwest in my direction. And I look at the radar in the news, and I'm thinking to myself, you gotta be effing kidding me right now. I mean, what a way to start your day. And there are no basements in Florida. The water table is too high. So if a tornado like that were to hit, all I could do is dive into the closet and hope I don't get killed, and that's it. I'm completely merciless to these sorts of tornadoes. So that was scary. That was probably, for me, the scariest part of the whole storm, because these tornadoes, I mean, they killed numerous people and left horrible damage. And thankfully the tornadoes passed to my east, maybe by about 5 to 10 miles or so. They were thankfully weakening by that point, but way too close for comfort. It was like I looked out the window, and of course they were at this point shrouded in rain, but, I could see the mass of rain and know there was a tornado in there. That's how close I was to it. I could see it in the distance. And that was just scary. I was watching the radar like a hawk at that point, but after those tornadoes hit, then as the storm the mass of the storm got closer, the winds picked up. They really started increasing at around 11 p.m. or so, and it just got windier and windier, and the rain was just, it was like a torrential downpour in the midst of a thunderstorm that just didn't end. Eventually the rain was blowing sideways, it was slapping the windows and the front door, and these gusts were coming through that were making these whistling sounds. Eventually, right before midnight, there were gusts that were probably well near 90 miles per hour with sustained winds in the 70s. And then, after midnight, maybe around 12:30, 1 a.m., everything got totally quiet, totally still. The rain stopped, the wind stopped, and that was the eye of Hurricane Milton actually going over me. So I was in the physical eye of the storm. And I know they say not to do this, but I was very careful about this, and granted, I will say, tropical weather is, as far as meteorology goes, I like weather, and tropical weather is what I'm most interested in, so I was very familiar with all of this, and I made sure to check to make sure that the next eye wall was still a ways away, which it was, and I did step outside. I was very cautious, of course. I just went out back with my brightest flashlight. I stepped out. As soon as I stepped outside, my ears popped, and it was just totally still. Completely and totally still. No wind whatsoever. The eye at this point was clouded over, but I could see these low clouds above me that were moving essentially in a curved manner so quickly. It was amazing to see. It's some of the fastest moving clouds I've ever bore witness to, but on the ground, it's totally quiet and still. No rain, no breeze, nothing. And it was peaceful, but it was unnerving because I knew there was more of the storm to come. I looked around a little bit, did a quick damage assessment. So far, so good. I had power at that point still, and internet. Went back in, and I was seeing reports online from the county just to the west of me. People saying, oh my god, the wind behind the storm is even worse. And the wind, past the eye of the storm on the way out is the worst I've seen. And I just thought to myself, oh boy, this is going to be... I was thinking to myself two things. I was thinking, please weaken some more. And I was also thinking, boy, this is going to be something that I'm really going to be looking forward to tonight. And sure enough, at around 2 a.m., the wind started picking up again, tropical storm force, but then it just kept getting higher and higher, to the point where eventually the strongest winds, I will describe it this way, of all the storms I've been in, the winds were at a point where these were the strongest winds I have ever experienced in my entire life. I mean, we were talking now, I would have to say gusts easily in the triple digits. No doubt about it. And the worst part is that just didn't end. You had this baseline level of winds, maybe at around 75 to 80 miles per hour with gusts, probably exceeding 100, maybe 110 even, or higher in some localized cases, where it lasted. It was hellish. And that did not stop until maybe 5 a.m. I mean, it was like that for probably 3 hours straight. Just these non-stop, strongest winds I'd ever seen in my life going by. The wind direction had changed, and all this stuff was slapping into the house. There were rocks being tossed, people's garbage bins blowing around, debris from people's roofs that were being damaged, limbs, I mean, you name it. All this stuff was blowing around, smacking into the house, and there were a few instances where the wind gusts were so high, I was ready to dive to the floor, essentially, as a last resort if a tree was going to come smashing in. Getting down as low as I could, I figure would have improved my odds, and there were a couple of gusts also that they kept building, and I was thinking I might have to get myself into the closet at some point here and just totally hunker down, but as these winds were going, I did look out the window a couple times out back, and it might have looked stupid, but I was sort of crouched to the ground while I was doing that because I figured, that would reduce by making myself a little smaller. If a tree branch really came through the window there, it'd lessen the odds of me getting hit or whatever. But I was looking out the window there, and these big, tall, sturdy trees were just being... I've never seen anything like it. It's like they were just being thrown around like a rag doll. And the wind was just that strong. These trees that barely moved during a thunderstorm were, just being thrown around. It was utterly insane. They were moving in ways you didn't even think these trees were capable of moving. And some of those gusts, like I said, were just downright horrific. Strongest I've ever seen. There's, for me personally, no comparison to this. And like I said, it was just relentless. Every time you thought it was getting a little better, then another gust came in that was even worse than the last one before that. And it went on for hours and hours. And everyone was losing power at that point. I was seeing reports online. The whole Orlando area, lights were just going off left and right. I was seeing these numerous green flashes of transformers blowing. I was even hearing the sound of arcing on 2 occasions at least. However, the amazing thing, the thing that was even crazier than these winds, is the fact that despite all of this, somehow, and I don't know how, but somehow, I didn't lose electricity. I didn't lose internet. Despite the winds being way worse than they were with Ian, where I lost everything, incomparable to how it was in the outer bands of Helene, which knocked out my utilities for a bit, yet somehow the worst storm I've ever been in, lights were on, internet was up, and everything was totally fine in that regard. Now, I had still made preparations. I was expecting to lose power. So I had the thermostat set down to 64 indoors, so I was all bundled up with a sweater and everything. And I had the freezer and refrigerator to their lowest settings. I put these bags of water into the freezer to make some more ice that I could then move to the refrigerator when the power went out, to keep that a little cooler for a little longer. I had everything ready. Had everything charged up, ready to go, and the lights stayed on. There were a few instances where I was in brownout conditions, and so I shut off, most of the lights. I just didn't want to put any more strain on the grid, and it was mostly in the, dark with just minimal lights, listening to the radio, monitoring the news and the radar, and some of the television stations, but the wind, worst I've ever seen. And it was relentless. It just didn't let up. This is a storm I'm never going to forget. And I'm still shocked by it. But I did lose a tree, unfortunately. When I saw the wind the way that it was, I figured it was an inevitability at some point. And it's a shame. It was a good tree, and I wish it didn't fall, but as I was sitting there, looking out the window, watching the trees getting blown around as they were, I realized at that moment that I had power over nothing. That nothing I could say, do, or think was going to change the situation, and that it was totally and completely out of my hands. And that actually made me feel a little bit better about things, I guess. Now, mind you, the whole time I was sort of trying to stay strong and focused and keep a clear head through it all in case I had to suddenly, make a quick move that could save my life if a big tree was suddenly falling. I was focused. I was doing good, actually, through the whole thing. Now it's just that sort of catching up with me, but I realized, though, in that moment, like I said, watching those winds I realized whatever happens, happens, and I have no control over anything here. So at that point I figured, even if this isn't the best attitude to have. Why worry about something right now that I have no control over, and that the outcome is just going to be what it is. So I accepted it, and I just waited it out. Like I said, I lost a good tree, sadly. I don't think it could be saved. Tons of branches down. But amazingly, no damage to the house, no damage to the siding, no roof shingles at all. Zero came off, nothing. The windows are impact resistant, thankfully, so there weren't any scratches, cracks, or breaks. Even all the screens outside for the little, enclosure, the little sunroom or whatever you want to call it, held up. So the resiliency of the infrastructure here is incredible, and the things that survived these strong winds were not what I thought. So, scary a storm as it was, and yes, I lost a tree, and I wish I didn't. It's a good tree, but fact of the matter is, I got so lucky during this. I mean, it's unbelievable. To keep the power, the water, the internet, and not have any damage to the house through what were the strongest winds I've ever experienced was utterly shocking, but in a good way. The same fortune, unfortunately, can't be said for Central Florida. Sure, it could have been worse, but there's a lot of destruction, lots of trees down, lots of damage, lots of flooding, and those tornadoes, total devastation wherever they tracked. So, I got off easy on this one, but it was a hard hit. It could have been, and the fact is it could have been worse, but regardless, it was a hard hit, and this was the first hurricane I'd ever been in where I was actually in the physical eye of the storm. Every other time, the eye had either skirted by me or was just, I caught some of the outer stuff, but in this one, it was the full experience. I mean, I got it all, and like I said, a storm I'm never going to forget, but I mean, there were hundreds of thousands, still are, without power, even in my own county, and many more hundreds of thousands in all the neighboring counties, millions without power across the whole state. So the fact that everything stayed on here, I don't deserve this luck. I mean, I'm glad I had it, but it's crazy. But one thing, that state of Florida does right is, number one, the building codes, and number two, they are really good at allocating the resources necessary for hurricanes. I would say best in the country. And there's a lot of personnel out there that are getting the lights back on, crews that'll help repair the damage, clear away the debris and the downed trees, and, build everything back up to essentially its former glory. Florida is a state that's able to recover from hurricanes unlike any other, and credit where credit is due there, but still, for those of you that listening in got a worse impact than me, I mean, my heart really goes out to you, and the folks whose homes were destroyed by the tornadoes or the storm surge or even just the wind. I mean, it's horrible, and I hate that this had to happen, but the past is the past. What happened, happened, but the future is still ahead of us. The future is still yet to be written, and better days will be ahead. But, gosh, what a storm. What a storm, and you hate to see it, but it's a storm, like I said, I'm never going to forget, and easily the worst winds I have ever witnessed. It was unbelievable, seeing things just moving away. I didn't even think they were possible to do that, and once the one tree went down, I just expected everything else was going to fall at that point, but it held on, barely, but everything did hold on. But, like I said, physically I'm alright. I essentially dodged yet another bullet, but, everything else, just that anxiety and the stress and the panic, and for those of you, like I said, long-time listeners, this whole last 30 days has been not all that great and stressful, so it's just catching up with me, and I just wanted to give you that update, let you know that I'm alive and well, and like I said, dodged a massive bullet here. And hopefully for the Monday show, I'll have more of a rounded news update. Hopefully I'll be feeling a little better. Right now I just need to sort of lay down for a while and sort of just take it easy. It's just what I have to do. And I hope you all understand that, but I wanted to give you that update. If you are tuned in, by the way, you can send in an email reception report to VORWINFO@gmail.com. Alright, to fill out the rest of the broadcast, this one is a little bit of a treat. I've been doing this program for about a decade now, and I'm going to play you all. So again, what you just heard was a segment of my radio show, VORW Radio International. That broadcast went out on 4840 kilohertz shortwave. It was also rebroadcast on some AM stations and a few other shortwave affiliates. And the segment was very well received, and I thought, I couldn't have said it any better then, so I wanted to syndicate it here on the podcast for all of you as well. But like you heard me say, Hurricane Milton, an unforgettable storm. I will tell you all, unforgettable. And that's about it for tonight. If you have any feedback on this program, you could write in to VORWINFO@gmail.com. There's going to be another show coming up in a few days, wherein I want to give a lecture about the unpredictability of life. I also want to talk about a few current events. I want to give a few updated thoughts on the election. And then I want to try to read and start catching up on some emails, because boy, have they been piling up. So there's probably going to be another show coming up in about 3 days, maybe 4. And if you have any comments on this program, you could reach out to me, VORWINFO@gmail.com. I know this one's been a little shorter, but like I said, this last month, it's been one hell of a month. And look, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces right now. I'm trying to get my life back in order. I'm trying to get everything back to normal, and I hope you all could understand it's been a difficult time, and I'm really trying my best here, and I hope you could. I ask for your understanding, and please stay tuned, and I hope in about 3 days or so you're going to get a second show after this one. I hope this one, again, made for an interesting listen. There's going to be more on the way, and like I said, thank you all for your understanding. And for those of you that wrote in during the storm, asking how I'm doing, sending your prayers, your messages of support, your good thoughts, your good energy, I really appreciate that, and that really means a lot to me. And I want to thank you all sincerely for that. May there be better days ahead, and I'll see you all in a couple days with a new episode. Until then, be safe, be healthy, and I wish you all the very best. Take care. This is VORW.